Everything that happened at the big house called Windsor Castle started to fall apart because of just one simple word. It was a word that most people think is very sweet, but this time it caused a lot of trouble. That word was grandmother. It all began when Princess Charlotte, who is only 9 years old, sat down for lunch. This was supposed to be a normal, quiet lunch for the royal family. There was soft music playing in the background, and everyone expected to have a nice time together. But within just a few minutes, Charlotte said something so serious and so calm that it made everyone in the room stop. It was like she threw a tiny stone that made a huge splash. No one knew how to act or what to say after she finished her sentence. The king was sitting there at the table. William and Catherine were there too, along with all three of their children. The room was beautiful and the food was ready, but there was a feeling of nervousness in the air. Queen Camilla was trying very hard to keep the talking light and happy. She knew that there had been some grumpy feelings lately, and she wanted the private meal to feel safe and relaxed. Everyone was doing their part and acting polite for a little while. Then Camilla mentioned that she belonged to the same age group as the children's grandparents. She was just talking casually, but Charlotte looked up from her plate. With a voice that was very quiet and very steady, she told Camilla that she already knew who her grandmothers were. She said very clearly that she would not call Camilla grandmother. The room did not get loud after that. Instead, it became terrifyingly quiet. That is the part that people remember the most. No one made a sound. No one gasped or dropped their fork. No one tried to change the subject or tell a joke to make things better. The silence just stayed there, stretching out longer and longer. In that quiet moment, everyone in the room understood that something very important had just happened. Charlotte had made a very big choice on purpose. Camilla knew it, and she felt it deeply. It was a moment that changed the way the family looked at each other. This was not just a little girl being rude. It was a child standing up for what she felt was true in her heart. King Charles heard what his granddaughter said. His first feeling was to be a grandfather, but he was also the king, so he felt he had to do something. He asked her why she said that. His voice was low and serious. He probably thought she would say she was sorry or give a simple answer that a child would give. He likely expected that he could just smooth things over and make everyone smile again. But that is not what Charlotte did. Instead of an apology, she gave a very grown-up answer. She said that some family names have to be earned. She believed that people should earn those names by how they make you feel. She was not crying or acting like she was having a tantrum. She was just stating a rule she believed in. After she said her piece, she asked if she could leave the table. Catherine, her mother, nodded her head. Charlotte pushed her chair back from the table. The sound of the chair legs scraping against the floor was very loud because the room was so quiet. It was the loudest thing anyone heard all afternoon. Camilla stayed very still, almost like she was frozen in place. She did not know what to do. Charles looked over at William. He realized right then that being the king did not mean he could fix this. There was no royal command that could change how a child felt. William was not angry with his daughter. He did not tell her she was being bad. Instead, he watched her very carefully. He did not correct her, and that showed everyone that he understood why she was acting this way. Catherine then followed Charlotte out into the hallway to talk. That is when the real story started to come out. This was not the first time that Camilla had made Charlotte feel uncomfortable or sad. A few weeks before that lunch, something had happened in private that changed everything for the young princess. Charlotte had been keeping a secret in her heart for a long time. The people who work at the palace could handle one awkward lunch, but what Charlotte told her mother behind the closed door was much more serious. It turned the whole situation from a simple family mistake into something much bigger. It was the result of feelings that had been growing for many months. For Charlotte, this was not about a royal title or a fancy name. But for Camilla, that is exactly why it hurt so much. Being rejected by a child felt very personal. Catherine sat down next to her daughter after they left the lunch table. She did not start by scolding her or telling her she was in trouble. Instead, she asked Charlotte a very kind question. She asked her what the word grandmother meant to her. Charlotte took her time to answer. She said that a grandmother should be someone who gives you trust and safety. She said a grandmother tells you stories and makes you feel protected. She did not want to feel pressured to say a word she did not mean. Charlotte has grown up around many royal titles like Queen and Prince. She knows those words are about jobs and duties. But to a child, words for family are different. They carry a lot of weight and love. Catherine understood this right away. She did not want her daughter to just put on a show for the family. In another room, Camilla was feeling very hurt. She told King Charles that she could handle mean stories in the newspapers. She said she could handle people comparing her to others for years. But she said she could not pretend that being rejected by his granddaughter meant nothing. It hurt her feelings more than the public could ever know. The king tried to tell her that things would be okay. He wanted to say that Charlotte would change her mind eventually, but he stopped for a second before he said it. That tiny pause made Camilla feel even worse. She has spent many years trying to be accepted by this family. She knows that being the queen is one thing, but truly belonging to the family is something else. She realized that even a fancy crown could not make someone love her. Later on, William found Catherine. He asked her the one question they had both been trying to avoid. He asked if Charlotte had talked about Diana. Catherine told him that their daughter had become very curious about the grandmother she never got to meet. Charlotte had seen many old photographs and heard many stories from her father about Diana. But Catherine also said something that made William feel worried. Charlotte was not rejecting Camilla just because she loved the idea of Diana. It was not just a dream in her head. Instead, it was because of something that happened a few weeks ago. Charlotte felt that Camilla had been mean about something that was very important to her. Charlotte felt like she had to protect the memory of her grandmother, Diana. William went to stand outside Charlotte's bedroom door. He put his hand on the handle, but then he let it go. He did not go in right away. He was thinking about his job as a prince and his job as a father. He knew that royal peace was important, but he also knew that his daughter's trust was more important. He had to decide if he would act like a royal leader or a dad who listens. When he finally went inside, Charlotte told him the whole truth. She said everything changed during a ceremony at the palace a few weeks before the Windsor lunch. There was no big fight that day. No one shouted or walked out. It was just a quiet moment in a quiet room with a photograph of Diana. One sentence was said, and Charlotte never forgot it. The grown-ups in the room that day forgot what was said almost immediately, but Charlotte did not forget. Camilla had made what she thought was a small correction, but it felt very different to the young princess. It touched the one relationship that Charlotte only knows through stories. Suddenly, Charlotte felt like those stories were in danger. She felt like she had to defend her grandmother, Diana. Charlotte had spent many afternoons with her dad, Prince William, looking at old family pictures. She liked to ask about the people in the photos and what they were like. Catherine liked these talks too. She wanted her children to know their family history as real people, not just as kings and queens. They had a private family meeting at Windsor to look at these old things. It was not an official event with cameras. It was just for them. William kept the stories about Diana very simple and sweet. He told his children she was their grandmother and that she was a very warm person. He never tried to use her memory to be mean to anyone else. Charlotte was looking at one photo and she quietly called her grandmother Diana. Camilla walked into the room right then and heard her. She told the young princess that she should not get too attached to people she never met. She told her she should focus on the family she has around her right now. Camilla said it calmly, but the words hit Charlotte very hard. Charlotte looked down and closed the book of photos she was holding. She asked her father if they could stop for the day. William knew right away that something was wrong. Later, he told Camilla that his daughter was old enough to understand the way someone says something. He said she was way too young to have to deal with all the old family pain from many years ago. Camilla said she only wanted Charlotte to be happy in the present, but Catherine found out there was another moment that no one saw. Charlotte had left the room but then came back because she forgot her bracelet. Before she walked all the way in, she heard Camilla talking to a helper. Camilla said that talking about Diana all the time would make the children confused. The helper did not say much, but Charlotte heard enough. To her, it felt very clear. She thought that remembering her grandmother was becoming a problem for the adults. She felt like they wanted to stop her from loving someone she never met. Charlotte did not tell anyone about this for weeks. She did not argue with Camilla or yell. She did not even tell her dad right away. Instead, she made a secret decision in her own mind. She decided that if loving one grandmother meant she was being disloyal to the other, she would just stop using the name for the new person. She felt she had to take a side to keep her grandmother Diana's memory safe in her heart. William sat and listened as his daughter finally told him about the bracelet moment. He looked down at the floor and felt very sad. He picked up a family photo and turned it over so he couldn't see it. He realized that the lunch at Windsor was not just Charlotte being naughty. It was the end of a long time of her feeling hurt in silence. By the time evening came, the problem was not just about Charlotte's behavior. William wanted to know why a child felt she had to defend a grandmother who was no longer alive. He was ready to talk to Camilla directly about this. He did not call for any royal helpers or lawyers. He just asked to speak to her alone. When the door was closed, William told Camilla that they would not talk about Charlotte until they talked about what Camilla had said first. Camilla thought he was going to ask her to help fix the lunch problem. She thought he wanted her to help make things normal again. Instead, she found a father who was very protective. He was upset that his daughter had been carrying such a heavy emotional load. He refused to let the royal rules hide the truth. William even kept King Charles out of the room. He did not want this to be about who was the boss or who had the highest title. He wanted it to be about a father, a daughter, and how people treat each other. William stood behind a chair but did not sit down. Camilla stayed in her seat. William asked her a very direct question. He asked if she told Charlotte that remembering her grandmother was confusing. Camilla tried to answer very carefully. She said she never meant for Charlotte to hear those words, but William's face stayed very hard and serious. He said that it doesn't matter what she meant. It only matters how it made the child feel. He explained that because of those words, Charlotte now felt like liking Camilla would be like betraying Diana. Camilla finally stopped trying to be perfect. She told William that it is very hard to be compared to a woman who died a long time ago. Camilla admitted that every time Diana is mentioned, she feels like there is no room left for her in the family's hearts. She said she acted badly because she was scared. She was afraid that Charlotte would always compare her to Diana and that she would never win. William listened, but he did not change his mind. He told her that his daughter was never trying to make them compete. Then he made a very clear rule. He said no one would stop Charlotte from loving her grandmother Diana. He said no one would be mean to Camilla, but also no one would force the girl to use a family word that she did not feel in her heart. He was standing up for his daughter's right to have her own feelings. Camilla asked him if this was just what he thought or if it was a new rule for the whole house. William gave her a very simple answer. He said that for his children, he and Catherine are the ones who decide. Camilla became very quiet. She felt embarrassed because she knew she couldn't win this fight. Even though Charles is the king, they couldn't force a little girl to love someone. If they tried to force her, it would make the royal family look mean instead of kind. Within an hour, King Charles heard what William had said. He asked to see his son alone. He had to make a very difficult choice. He had to decide between his wife and his son. Charles has spent his whole life following royal rules and titles, but this problem could not be fixed with a rule book. He could tell Charlotte where to sit or what to wear, but he could not tell her how to feel. He knew that if he tried to order her to be affectionate, it would only hurt the family more. He met with William without any secretaries or notes. He wanted it to be a personal talk. The king said that this fight was a threat to how the family stayed together. William agreed, but he said that Charlotte would always be polite and follow the public rules. However, he insisted that the word grandmother was a private word for the heart, not a royal duty. Charles admitted that Camilla was very hurt by all of this. William did not say that her pain didn't matter, but he said that Charlotte was the one who was hurt first. He said his daughter was too young to be caught in the middle of adult problems. He said that if they punished her now, it would teach her that the person with the most power gets to tell everyone else how to feel. Charles felt stuck. He loved his wife, but he also loved his granddaughter. He asked if Catherine really agreed with William. William said yes. They had decided together that Charlotte would use Camilla's official title when they were at big events, but she would never be forced to call her grandmother in private. The king took off his glasses and put them on the desk. He and his son sat in silence for a long while. Finally, the king said he would not force Charlotte to say the word. This was a very big deal. It meant that even though Charles was the king, William and Catherine were in charge of their children's hearts. Charles hoped that they could keep this a secret within the walls of Windsor, but that did not last very long. When Camilla found out that Charles would not take her side over William, she started to act differently. The people who work at the palace noticed that she stopped showing up at family events. The king had chosen not to force the word, but it did not bring peace right away. It created a gap between them. The first sign of trouble was an empty chair. Camilla decided not to go to a private family tea where Charlotte was going to be. She told Charles there was no point in being there if it was just going to be uncomfortable. This made the family feel very uneasy. Catherine was worried that Charlotte would think it was her fault. William thought Camilla was trying to make them feel guilty. Charles had to watch his wife pull away from the very people she had tried so hard to be close to for years. Camilla kept doing her official jobs for the public, but she stopped going to the private family parties. This made the distance between them very easy to see for anyone living in the house. Every time Camilla was missing from a family event, it felt like a message. She told herself she was just trying to avoid a fight, but really it just made things more tense. Catherine saw the danger in this. Charlotte noticed the empty chair at tea and asked if Camilla stayed away because of her. Catherine told her very clearly that grown-ups are responsible for their own choices. She told her daughter that she did not have to fix other people's feelings just because she was being honest about her own. Charlotte felt a little better, but she was still quiet. She asked if the Queen was angry. Catherine explained that being hurt and being angry are two different things. Later, Camilla told Charles that she felt like she had to ask permission to enter a room. She felt small and unwanted. The king listened, but he told her that staying away would not help Charlotte trust her. He said that by hiding, she was putting even more pressure on the child. He said that they had to start fixing things without worrying about the word grandmother. William heard that Camilla might skip a birthday party too. He got very worried about that. He did not want his daughter to think she had the power to make adults disappear. He and Catherine talked about how to stop this from becoming a bigger burden for Charlotte. Catherine noticed something very interesting. Charlotte was not happy that Camilla was gone. She didn't want to hurt her, she just wanted to be honest. Camilla came back to the room after the tea was over and saw her empty chair. She touched it but did not sit down. She realized that staying away was like giving up. Once William understood that Charlotte just wanted to be understood, he helped set up a private talk. No kings or princes were allowed to be there. Catherine helped arrange it because Charlotte said she wanted to talk. William only agreed if no one was forced to apologize or change their mind about the names they used. Charles told Camilla the same thing. He said they had to try to make peace without any strings attached. This was important because it kept royal jobs separate from family feelings. Charlotte brought the same photo of Diana that had caused the hurt before. She put it on the table and told Camilla that she thought the Queen wanted her to stop loving someone important. The words were very simple, but they were very powerful. Camilla did not interrupt. She admitted that she had been insecure and that she shouldn't have taken it out on a child. She said that hearing about Diana made her feel like she could never be good enough. Charlotte was not angry. She told Camilla that she was never trying to make her compete with Diana. This changed how Camilla felt. For years, she had been afraid of Diana's memory, but now she saw that Charlotte was just a girl asking about her own family. She finally saw that it was not a contest. Camilla said she was sorry. She said she was wrong to say Charlotte shouldn't be attached to her grandmother Diana. She also said she shouldn't have called the memories confusing. She did not ask Charlotte to call her grandmother. This was a big step. Charlotte accepted the apology but said she still wanted to call her Camilla in private. The Queen agreed to this. As Charlotte was leaving, she stopped at the door. She turned around and asked if Camilla would come to the family birthday party. This was a real invitation from the heart, not just because of royal rules. Camilla was surprised, but she said yes. They had finally found a way to be peaceful in private, but the public did not know any of this. A few days later, they went to an event together. A camera caught a moment that everyone started talking about. Charlotte stepped out of a car, and instead of giving Camilla a hug, she offered her hand for a handshake. To the people watching on TV, it looked like they were being cold to each other. The newspapers and TV shows started saying the family was falling apart. They called it the royal distance. They showed the video over and over again. Some people cheered for Charlotte, and some people said she was being mean. But inside the family, that handshake was actually a good thing. It was the middle ground they had agreed on. William and Catherine knew people would talk, but they told Charlotte to just be herself and be respectful. They did not want her to fake a hug for the cameras. Camilla felt the pressure of the mean headlines, but she did something surprising. She agreed with William that they should not say anything to the public. Camilla did not want to use Charlotte to make herself look better in the news. She chose to protect the girl's privacy instead of trying to fix her own image. This was a big change. It showed she was finally putting the child first. Charlotte saw the newspapers and asked her dad if she had messed up again. William told her that being honest and respectful is never a bad thing. He said grown-ups should stop making kids act out feelings just for the cameras. The headlines were wrong about what was happening. Even though the world thought they were fighting, they were actually starting to understand each other better. In the end, Charlotte never changed her mind about the word grandmother. She stayed true to herself, but she showed everyone that you can have a good relationship with someone even if you don't use a specific title. Camilla also learned a very hard lesson. She learned that you cannot force someone to belong or to love you. Love has to grow on its own. What started as a big fight ended up helping the whole family. They finally had to talk about Diana without being afraid. They realized that the kids could love the grandmother they never met and still be kind to the one who is here now. At the next family meeting, things felt much better. There were no special rules or seating plans. Charlotte used Camilla's name when they were alone, and she used her royal title when they were at official events. It was a small difference, but it worked for everyone. Respect did not have to mean they were best friends. Camilla stopped waiting for Charlotte to call her grandmother. Instead, she started asking Charlotte about her life and her interests. She showed that she was actually listening. Charlotte felt like she was being treated like a person, not just a little princess to be managed. King Charles finally felt like he could relax. He was happy not because he got his way, but because the room didn't feel full of anger anymore. William also felt better. He didn't feel like he had to jump in to protect his daughter every second. Catherine realized that the whole problem happened because the adults were afraid of the past. Charlotte's honesty forced them to face that fear. Camilla finally understood that she didn't have to replace Diana, she could just be herself. And Charlotte learned that she could keep her grandmother Diana's memory safe without being mean to Camilla. When the family gathering ended, Charlotte asked if Camilla would be at the next one. There was no big hug or fancy speech. The Queen just smiled and said she would like that very much. That is how the big grandmother fight ended. They stopped fighting over a single word and started building a real relationship. They learned that honesty is more important than a title. The family found a way to be together that was based on truth instead of just following old rules. It took a 9-year-old girl to show the king and queen how to really be a family. And in the end, they were all much happier because of it.